Following overwhelming feedback, the Davis administration has locked down a target date to begin trading the country's carbon credits on the stock market. And the Prime Minister sees that as before the end of the year. The Prime Minister spent recent months schooling the international community on the effects of climate change on the country and what mitigation methods ultimately need to be taken. After all, its impact not only leads to the grim possibility of lives being lost, but millions of dollars in damage and losses. As it stands, the Bahamas' debt-to-GDP ratio is a staggering 82%. Still, much lower than the over 100% the Davis administration says it met upon taking office. This has, however, warranted concern over whether the country's debt will lead to it not being able to fulfill future obligations. Prime Minister the Honourable Philip Davis says that's far from the truth, but here's what he insists on making clear, and that's that the responsibility of our debt is not of our own making.
Because if one were to look at the profile of our debt and how it was incurred, you'll find that up to 40% or more of that debt is directly related to our consequence of climate change. And so most of our debt is basically related to matters to which we did not contribute.
The Prime Minister has stressed at every turn that industrial countries who've been using fossil fuels for centuries, their bill is due. This explains his persistent push for these countries to become more accountable.
What you must remember is that most people are now talking about mitigation and adaptation. Loss and damage is still not making its way to the agenda. And when you look at mitigation, you're talking about reducing the carbon emissions. When we talk about adaptation, we're talking about building for resilience and to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
So you talk those two things we're talking about. But what you have to realize is that there's still a lot of carbon in the air. It's not enough just to reduce our emissions now. There's still a lot of carbon up in the air that has to be sucked out.
In the meantime, the Bahamas has looked for ways and means to help itself. Carbon sinks have been identified. Once these are verified, the next step is to have them traded on the stock market.
Well, let me put it this way. Once the word got out that we were pursuing monetizing carbon credits, I had unsolicited offers just to buy it from numbers ranging from 350 million to 400 million. So for me to have had that, it tells me it's probably 4 times that.